Okay, I think we're recording. Hello! I've not done one of these in ages. Happy 2022. I just looked and it's been 4 months since I last made one of these vlogs. So, welcome back. Sorry, I feel like somewhere I promised to be consistently inconsistent, so I'm just giving you your money's worth on this free video. Anyway, I just thought it was about time for another update. My hair's changed. I've dyed it. It's also merging into a mullet, hopefully. Yes. And yeah, how have you been? I hope you have been good. I don't know why I haven't posted to this channel. I feel like it just takes a minute to like sit down and like film one of these, and I just haven't. I've been thinking about doing it for a few weeks now, and here we are finally. But this channel is a lot about my experiences with ADHD and meds. So a quick update. Basically, I've been on the same dose for like, I think it's like 3 months. It's at least 2 months, probably more like 3, nearly 4. And I'm really like settled on it. I feel like my body is like really adjusted to them, because they're for ADHD, they're obviously stimulants. They like stimulate you, and when I was on the higher doses, I felt like quite jittery sometimes. But like on my current dose, none of that. And I can also tell that my body's got more used to it, because when I was first on them, I would take them, because you have to take them early in the morning, then go back to sleep, and then they would wake me up about an hour later. Like I'd kind of wake up naturally, but I could tell it was because I had taken them, and like they take a little bit to kick in. But that stopped happening as much. So I think the effects are less keeping me awake and more like kind of like a base level, allowing me to do things, which I assume is like ideal. It works well for me anyway. So yeah, that's been good. There's been a bit of a like, it's interesting because obviously it's not like magic. It's like I still struggle with like big difficult tasks. Like at the moment I need to organise an appointment to see the optician, and I've needed to for ages, but like my brain's like, no, too scary. But so it doesn't really help with those types of things. There's still a lot of kind of, I don't know, it seems like a big task, it's difficult to do, but little things like tidying a bit and putting on loads of laundry is like infinitely easier. And like the little tiny everyday things I can do, no issue, which is kind of ideal. And I imagine what most people feel. But yeah, that's a little meds update. I'm planning to stay on these. I've had an appointment with my psychiatrist and he's all happy with how it's going, so pretty good. What else is happening? Well, I've still been, the only thing I haven't been inconsistent on is Twitch things, which I'm sure is what most people I talk to know me from, potentially. And that's been very fun. There's been a like interesting thing in my own head, nothing to do with other people, but like, right, I feel this sometimes when watching certain like YouTube videos, sometimes when I watch people's streams as well, is that sometimes there can be a very quick kind of not like you're not warned about it, but it can suddenly get very, very intense emotionally very quickly. Like I know I've watched a YouTube video expecting it to be something, and then suddenly it goes into this really intense, like, dark story about this person's past, and like my emotional availability, I just can't. I'm like, and I don't know whether it's just where my brain's at the moment, but if I see a video that I'm like, this looks like they could be talking about very intense emotional topics that are sad, I'm like, no. I am going to avoid that because I don't think I have the energy to do that. And like, I'm a big believer in that, like, trauma dumping is really bad without consent. And the whole idea of Twitch and general live streaming in general, particularly live streaming, is that not everyone you don't know everyone who's there, first of all. And people can't, like, consent to things like that. So it's like, there's obviously a rule on my stream for, like, no trauma dumping, because first off, that would kind of ruin the vibe for me. And it could hit a nerve with something that I've been through or I'm going through. I don't know. But it's also like, I don't know who's watching. Someone could be watching and that could really affect them. But the balance with that is really difficult because I try to keep everything, like, pretty positive. As a person, I'm a pretty positive person just in general. I like to think I'm kind of like a realist, but also I like figuring out the good in a really bad situation, which isn't something I generally share because that can be, like, not great for someone's mental health if they're going through something really shitty and then someone else is like, oh, don't worry, it's actually positive. Like, that's not what you want to hear. But that's something that just I try to do, but I worry in, like, online spaces it comes across as, like, toxic positivity, which is, like, never my intention. And I don't know, the fine line between talking about, like, struggles that I'm going through and oversharing on the internet and not wanting to do that or trigger anyone is, like, a fine line I've, like, had real trouble dealing with. I have, like, a lot of trouble being like, do I open up about this, like, semi-traumatic thing that happened online? Even though that's, like, I've dealt with it myself, so it's not affecting me or anything, but it could be used for kind of education in a way, but also I don't want, like, everything I post to be about negative experiences I've had, if that makes sense. And also, I'll generally only post about negative stuff when I've, like, dealt with it and I'm okay sharing it, at least in depth. But it always feels really weird to me when I get responses like, oh, like, you could always, like, talk to me, like, thinking of you, like, I hope you're doing okay. Like, it's lovely messages, but it also feels almost like I'm kind of manufacturing them. Because a lot of the times when I post that sort of stuff, I'm not really looking for any support, because I'll have already, like, seeked it out privately, and I'm quite good at, like, dealing with stuff, and I have quite a good network of people who I can talk to and help me deal with stuff. That, like, online is never the first place I'd go. So it's weird to get those responses, and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I just, like, wanted to be transparent, but it's difficult to do that in a way that doesn't also, like, worry people. So most of the time I just avoid kind of speaking on those things, but I don't know if it's, I don't know. It's like a moral question. I don't know if I should be, but I also, like, Don't want to do? I'm not sure. It's really difficult because I don't. I feel like sometimes I do like appear quite like toxic productivity, positivity. But at the same time, me as a person, I much prefer a very positive online space just to vibe in than like one that has a lot of people being very negative all the time. Like, I take myself out of those. So, I don't know. It's just, I think, a really difficult balance to find between being open and honest, having your privacy, and also, like, not wanting to, like, worry or upset people or make them worry about you, if that makes sense. So, I don't know. Just, it's interesting. But yeah. There's some, like, things I've been finding, like, probably since, like, I've got more of, like, an audience and community of people who I talk to regularly and interact with. Like, finding that fine line is really difficult because I think it just is. I don't know whether that's related to ADHD. Could be I'm way overthinking this than other people think. Probably. That's what I do with most things, but yeah. I don't particularly want this video to be too long, so I might round it off here. I won't promise anything, but I hope to do more of these more often because it's quite fun and, you know, I feel like unfiltered thoughts in a more vlog style is interesting. I find my thoughts interesting. Anyway, I'm going to head off now. I might film a proper YouTube video as well, in which case I'll be in exactly the same setting and exactly the same clothes. So I might not, but if I do, look forward to that. But you won't know until I upload it. So just get on with your lives. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, links to all sorts of stuff are down below. As I said, I hope you've had a good start to your 2022. Yes. I should have fun things coming. I technically haven't really started working on them, but plans in my head are there. Who knows if they'll come to fruition? It's a surprise every time with me. Okay. I will see you in the next video, whenever that will be. Stay hydrated. Look after yourself. And, well, bye everyone.